All right, so Gang, Yang 2020 campaign. Here we go. So I know a lot of people that watch this channel. You're gonna be, like, why is this dude tripping and bugging off of, uh, you know, Andrew Yang and the presidential campaign and all that? But I'm gonna say it like this: to me, it's important that we do participate, mostly in local economic or local politics, but also in this case, I'm gonna say, the federal politics, the presidential campaign, based on the fact that we seen what happened with this whole little debacle and the impeachment and Donald Trump lying all the damn time and this and that. And I'm typically not even interested in presidential politics. I mean, to keep it real, of course, when Obama ran the first time on GP, I did vote for him, and I did tell everybody I know, saying vote for him. And you know why we did that? Didn't really produce any real tangibles for us. But I'm all about leveraging, in ways that we can that will benefit us. So I want to tell you how I feel about the presidential candidate Andrew Yang. I'm gonna tell you why I feel like that way. But before I do so, let me just show you this real quick, because this is gonna be important for you to understand when it comes to, and I'm gonna tell you what this is right here, because this might help you understand when it comes to the concept behind some of his proposals, which is data ownership and the UBI, which is $1,000 a month for everybody over 18. So what I want you to do is check this out. So I want you to understand like some of the principles behind it. You may not understand it 100%, but just get the gist of it. So what you just seen that just popped up right here, and I get these notifications every so often, and I get paid to look at those notifications, right? Because I don't use Google as a browser anymore. And I'll put the link to this browser in the description, but I don't use Google as a browser anymore for several reasons. Number one, they sell your data, and a lot of times that data gets compromised. The fact that so many people are on Google is how they are able to sell advertisement, right? So because they have, let's say, a billion people on Google Chrome, then that means that people that want to advertise on Google Chrome, companies that want to advertise, they're able to charge them a lot of money. You don't get none of that. Then on top of that, they take your information and they also sell that to other marketers and advertisers so that they can, decide what kind of ads to put on your browser and what kind of things to send you, what kind of things you're interested in, so that they could, monetize your data. So you don't get any of that money, right? So part of the data ownership that he's proposed is that, we should get a portion of our data. We should be able to, come out of the contract whenever we want if we don't choose to want to have our data available for these major platforms, and that, we get a percentage of the money. So that's the basic concept behind the browser that I now use, called the Brave browser. So the browser I now use, check this out. You ain't gonna get rich off it, but I just want you to look at this, man. So on this browser, as you can see, I've earned almost 11 bucks, right? See that right there? That's in BAT tokens, which is a cryptocurrency. We'll get to that in a minute. So I've earned almost 11 bucks just by doing regular shit that you do every day on your browser any damn way. You know what I'm saying? So even on my mobile app, on my mobile browser, on my phone, I've made over twice that just for doing regular shit. All I do is what I typically would do online. And they compensate based on the fact that when they sell advertisements, they kick some down to everybody that uses the browser, because those are the numbers that they were able to charge money for. You feel me? So now, don't I'm gonna tell you like this, man. You're not gonna get rich off of this. However, this is really the best reason to use the browser that I'm using. This is really the reason I use it, because as you can see right here, ads and trackers blocked 16,245. That many upgrades, whatever. That doesn't really mean much to most people unless you're in the program and stuff like that. And 14 minutes of time. So even like when you're using it on your mobile, on your phone, then that those ad trackers, those ads and trackers, that's data coming out of your data plan. If you don't have an unlimited plan, it's also energy coming from your battery, and it's also time that it takes for pages to load. That's really the best reason to use this browser that I use. Because you're to be honest with you, you're not even going to be able to cash out this money unless you know a little bit of something about cryptocurrencies and how cryptocurrency wallets work. You know what I'm saying? So most people don't. So, you'll be accumulating all this, but most likely you won't be able to take it out if you don't know anything about cryptocurrency and how crypto wallets work, which I'm very familiar with. That's why I started the CryptTalk podcast, which I'll put the link to that if you want to subscribe to that channel, because really it's something that, we really should start to get to know. So the reason I brought this up is because I did a report on CryptTalk podcasts on Andrew Yang back in November, because November is when this browser actually was introduced to the public. So I was using it before that. It was in beta stage, but that's when it was introduced. And that same weekend it was introduced is the same weekend where Andrew Yang came out talking about data ownership, and he was in San Francisco when he said that, and that's where this browser is from. So I put one and one together, and I figured that he probably either he knows about it definitely, or maybe he's also an investor in it or something like that. I'm not sure about that. So because I'm familiar with that, I started kind of following his campaign a little bit, and that's why I think that he would be the best choice as far as a president, somebody that would actually put tangibles and actually have some real solutions. So I want to show you this video, and then I'm going to get into some other things, man.
For perhaps the first time in history, we have the resources, the know-how, and the technology to make starvation and dependency relics of the past. But do we have the will?
Now, one of the answers, it seems to me, is a guaranteed annual income, a guaranteed minimum income for all people and for all families of our country.
In recent years, evidence has shown that giving people cash as a way to address poverty actually works. In study after study, people don't stop working and they don't drink it away. They actually use it to increase their earnings.
Right now we have a safety net with gaping holes in it. We allow and we choose for people to be in poverty. Even now with the good economy that we have, 1 in 7 Americans is in poverty, more than 20% of children.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. Okay. What to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
Autonomous vehicles are going to kill about 10% of the jobs worldwide in a very short period of time. And I think of it as we're getting honey without the worker bees. Universal basic income lets us share that honey. And it's a platform for participation in the world. I think we will see more innovation, more creativity when I no longer have to care about rent and whether I can feed myself.
We're going to have to consider new ways of thinking about these problems, like a universal income, review of our work week, how we retrain our young people, how we make everybody an entrepreneur at some level. But we're going to have to worry about economics if we want to get democracy back on track.
Now, I'm not here to endorse Andrew Yang, but I think his basic idea at least seems workable to me. I mean, his idea is to put a value-added tax, which is basically a flat consumption tax, and use it to finance universal basic income, so everybody gets a lump sum back. That, I think, could work.
If you look around, who are the big winners from the 21st century economy? It's a company like Amazon that's up to $1 trillion in value, and they literally paid zero in taxes, less than everyone here in this studio. So of course you're going to struggle to pay for things if you have trillion-dollar companies paying zero. If we give ourselves our tiny fair share of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every Facebook ad, every robot truck mile, we can easily afford $1,000 a month for every American.
right, so I'm gonna leave it up to y'all to do your own research. You know what I'm saying? Going forward, you know what I'm saying, and but I'm gonna say like this though, just on the real, the only if it was only the universal basic income, meaning everybody getting $1,000 a month, that alone for me is like, you know what I'm saying? Like Donald Trump ain't doing no shit like that. He's cutting people off of food stamps and shit that don't apply to 80% of people. Period. You know what I'm saying? The stock market is not a reflection of the economy for 80% of us. Like if you don't own stocks, then how good the stock market and the GDP, that means nothing. I happen to own stocks. I own stocks and cryptocurrencies. So yeah, that's cool. But overall for most people, that's not what's happening. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I'm looking at this practically because we talk about tangibles, right? And I know not everybody agrees with this, but I'm talking about tangibles. So there's going to be a president in 2020. It might be Trump again, it may not. It might be somebody else. But there's going to be a president. Feel me? Now, none of them have said anything to me that I've heard that was like worth me saying, yeah, that's somebody I'd vote for. It's like it's not even it's kind of like when Trump and Hillary ran. It's like, what do we see in voting for any of them? Because like it doesn't matter. They're both gonna be fugazi. None of them said anything that's practical and tangible that would actually mean something in our day-to-day lives, right? But in this case, what we have is somebody running on a platform of universal basic income. Everybody gets 1,000. If you're 18 and up, you get 1,000 a month. Period. So think about how that would affect your life. Think about if you live with three roommates. That's four of y'all, all getting 1,000 a month. You still work. You know what I'm saying? That's not enough to not work. But bam, that's rent and everything paid for right there. Now more of your check you can use to spoil your kids, to invest in business of your own. You know what I'm saying? To splurge on some things. It means that even if you have to take less hours or if you're trying to find a job or saying stuff like that, you got more money to work with, man. You can invest that. Now you can put some of that in the stock market. You can put some of that in cryptocurrencies or whatever. So that's like a very tangible thing that would apply. And you can't tell me that you couldn't use an extra 1,000 a month. And it is workable because this is what is going on right now in Alaska. They pretty much have that going on in regards to their oil. That's how come every year they give citizens in Alaska a couple $1,000. It's the basic same principle. This is why Libya was doing so well before they got invaded, because they were sharing their oil revenues with the rest of the citizens. So this seems like far-fetched when I speak to people about it. Number one, they never heard of Andrew Yang because you don't see him on the TV that much, because if the TV and if these politicians are mostly being backed by corporations and banks, and of course when somebody's talking about Amazon, Starbucks, all these big major billion trillion dollar corporations need to start paying taxes, of course they're not going to give them too much juice. Feel me? He will be in the debate tomorrow though. So I mean, what I'm saying is check him out, you know what I'm saying, and think about if there's something practical and tangible how we can benefit from, because it's not just from it doesn't have to just be from an individual standpoint, right? Think of it like this: we belong to organizations. Some of us, we have cliques. Some of us do things in the realms of collective, economics and collective work, what I'm saying, like liberation minded media or whatever kind of things we do. Imagine having that extra 1,000 now that we can collectively say, yo, let's put this together and do this with it. Feel me? Now we can launch this thing, this business, this idea, the mobilization of different things in the community that we do. And now we have a way to kind of boost that without having to really worry about, you know, if our check has 40 hours on it and if we have to pay this bill, just like something that's just coming in, just helping. So it is to me very tangible because, like I said, I understand the principles of how decentralized browsers and social media works. For instance, let me give you another example when we speak about when I'm telling you about the Brave browser. So because I'm into cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, both are what you call decentralized. So decentralized basically means there's no central authority. and the basic principle of decentralization when it comes to social media platforms, which I have a few different social media platforms that I use right now that most people ain't heard of. Most people that only heard of them, they're in the cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. Like I said, CryptTalk podcast, you want to learn more about that. So the basic principle, like for instance, I have this social media network site that I use called Peppo, Pepo. It's kind of like a Snapchat. Feel me? You can share 1 minute long videos, and when you share these videos, people can tip you. Like just when you sign up, they're gonna give you like $5 worth of Peppo coin, which is a cryptocurrency. And then as you make videos, people, they can tip your videos and stuff like that. So next thing you know, you're starting to accumulate just by making dumbass little videos for 1 minute long. Now people are starting to support your video by throwing a few Peppo coins, and you know what I'm saying. And I've made money from there. I also belong to a couple other platforms, and there's one that's going to be starting on the 14th of this month called Voice, which is kind of like a Twitter slash Facebook, and they have the same concept. So I'm very aware of these different decentralized platforms being able to work. And imagine if when you made a Facebook video and people are liking it and this and that. Imagine if you were making money for that. You know what I'm saying? Like I know YouTube you can, but YouTube is only going to monetize you based on certain conditions. You have to have 1,000 subscribers. You have to get a lot of views before you'd even accumulate anything, and then they can demonetize your platform at any time because they're centralized, meaning that there's one central authority that governs what you can and can't say and things like that. Well, this doesn't necessarily happen on these decentralized platforms. Like I said, I know a lot of this might go over your head if you're not familiar. So I'm familiar with this to the point to where that's how I understand the principles of what he's speaking about and how it can work, and that it indeed is already working on some level. So, you know, when you look at that alone, that's enough for me. $1,000 a month, fuck it, that's enough. You know what I'm saying? What the worst could happen is, we vote or whatever. He might not make it. He doesn't look like he has a big chance of making it. But I mean, it ain't gonna hurt to check this shit out, check out what he's saying, and possibly vote on this and participate in things, because I'm at the point where I don't want to sit up here and just keep looking at all this shit that ain't working. I don't want to keep on looking at these damn TV and seeing all this bullshit going on in politics, and most of us are detached from it because it's so fugazi or it doesn't seem like it directly affects us. But that shouldn't be the case. We should be able to be involved in different levels of things that we can have somewhat control and benefit, because we've been here long enough that we should have feel like we have stock in here in the United States. And we should understand that when some people come up with good ideas, you know what I'm saying, some of them could benefit us. Like if we don't have nothing to vote for, then yeah, I get it, pull back from the vote, that's power in itself. But if there is something worth looking into and supporting, then we should do that. Because if we can mobilize in the way that we do on social media to drag people when they deserve it, sometimes when they don't deserve it, if we can mobilize to the point to where Popeye's Chicken got $34 million worth of free advertisements while we neglected our own mom and pop chicken spots, then we should also be able to use that same energy to do things that could actually be beneficial to us. So I don't want to sit up here and thump too hard for dude, but I'm gonna tell you the truth, man. I fucks with Andrew Yang. You know what I'm saying? So let's just look at a couple of these things, and then I'm gonna go ahead and close this down. So economy, some of his things on the economy: promotes equal pay for equal work. He wants to alleviate the racial discrepancies in pay. He also proposed to implement a mandatory paid leave policy, which includes a minimum leave policy for full-time workers and paid time away for contract workers. So this is like for some of that is for like woman has a baby, couple has a baby, they should be able to get paid leave. Wants to make that like mandatory thing. That's a big thing, man. Like just imagine if we're speaking about family and this and that, and we know when we have babies, it have to be at work the next day. Like I was able to take like 2 days off, you know what I'm saying, just because my job was understanding enough, so I was able to do that. But these are things that to help us bond with families and stuff, with that we it should be mandatory. And in some countries it is. Some countries it's like, yeah, you have a baby, mother and father can take 3 months off getting paid so they can bond with their baby. So the first thing they can do is bond with the baby rather than send them to daycare for somebody else to bond with. That's just like common sense, humanity type of shit. So, Democracy Dollars, Yang supports the implementation of Democracy Dollars, where voting age citizens receive $100, use it or lose it, democracy voucher for each year to give candidates. So, in other words, when you want to support a candidate with money, there's going to be Democracy Dollars that don't cost you nothing that you can disperse amongst the candidate or candidates that you support. If you don't use it that year, you lose it, whatever, whatever. But what that does is make it so that candidates don't have to rely on corporations and banks and big time donors that will heavily influence shit like we see going on right now. So that's just like a solution in a way. Let's see what else we got. Ranked choice voting. I can get into that. There's something else I did want to get into. Energy and climate, nuclear energy. He supports using nuclear energy, which I think is important. I'm not really a pro-choice dude. I mean, I do believe that those decisions should be made, but I'm more of a pro-life. But I can't tell somebody else what to do though. Feel me? Healthcare policy is cool. Drug policy. He supports the legalization of cannabis and the decriminalization of opiates, including heroin for personal use. Now, that's not the same as saying to make heroin legal. He does want to legalize marijuana federally, but he's saying as far as like some of these other drugs, just decriminalize it for users. That way, what happened to us in the 80s won't happen. You know what I'm saying? When that crack epidemic hit, we were going to jail. You know what I'm saying? Our people that was hooked on drugs was doing all kinds of time just because they were hooked rather than just the drug dealers. So, he's saying like if you decriminalize it, that means police ain't gonna take you to jail for it. And now you can actively seek help and stuff like that rather than going to jail. Kind of like how they're doing, with this new wave drug policies that they're making for these white folks overdosing on heroin and all that. So I mean, that's to me that's dope. Higher education regarding student loans, Yang has proposed reducing the student loan burden, improving efficiency of funds invested in education, and increasing the accountability of educational institutions. In other words, if your kid graduates and can't read, instead of we're not going to be blaming the kid, kind of like Dr. Umar said, we should really be blaming the institutional, the school that they went to because they didn't do their job. So, I don't want to make this too long. I just wanted to kind of show you my thoughts and introduce you to a different option that I know a lot of people ain't heard of. Saying he did pretty good in the Iowa caucus, but like he doesn't really get too much light. His campaign is more grassroots because the things that he's speaking about are very revolutionary, for lack of better words. They're things that actually would put money. Okay, think about what happened in that bailout. So y'all that remember what happened in 2008, 2009, when the whole economy crashed. I was in the mortgage business at the time, so I remember it clearly. So remember when all that happened, and they gave a total of $4 trillion to different insurance companies and banks and corporations. Remember when that happened? Now, a lot of people don't know that at that same time there was also a debate saying, well, why don't we just put the money right into Americans' hands rather than giving them to these businesses and banks? Why don't we just put the money in Americans' hands and then they're going to spend it and that's going to stimulate the economy by itself? That was shot down because it was determined. People said that a lot of these corporations and banks and politicians like, well, if we give it right to them, remember these politicians are already millionaires. Like, well, if we put it in the average American's hands, they're not going to spend it. They're just going to hoard it away, and then that won't stimulate the economy, which is bullshit. We all know that, but you know what I'm saying. So instead of doing what could have cost 1/4 of the money that it cost for them to give $4 trillion to people who didn't really need it. So that's kind of the concept of a universal basic income, and saying, look, you really want to stimulate the economy, put money in people's hands. They're going to put it back anyway. They're going to invest it. They're going to start businesses. They're going to do things like that. They're going to spend it it's going to stimulate local economy. So think about, a Chicago or some area where it's poor, whether they're black or white, whatever. Think about a poor community that doesn't really have resources. The jobs ain't really there like they used to be, blah, blah, blah. Now you're pumping that community with $1,000 per adult They're gonna go spend. That means that now businesses are gonna be doing better. They're gonna open. They're gonna start businesses. It's gonna stimulate economy. People don't have to worry about little things that we have to worry about the day to day. Like when you only could put in $10 in your tank when you know damn well it takes 20 or 30 to fill it up. But also you have to be able to budget because you don't get paid till Friday and blah blah blah. That kind of alleviates some of those kind of things, man. It means that students don't have to work, they can just focus on their studies. It means that new mothers don't have to worry about juggling a job and taking care of the child. You know what I'm saying? They have a safety net of $1,000 a month that they don't have to be away from the child so much. And you know think about if you're a couple, that's an extra 2,000. Now that you could do some things, think about all the things that ideas that you have that you might want to put into play, but you just don't quite got the money to do it because money's kind of tight. That's what it is, man. And I don't give a damn about if Amazon has to now start paying taxes and all that kind of shit, man. You know what I'm saying? Like let's even the playing field a little bit and do this the right way. That's all I'm saying. So that's why I fucks with Yang Gang 2020. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Look more into him and figure out how you feel about him. I don't know if he really has a big chance of winning, but I'm not one of those quitters that just say, "Oh man, that can never work," because I'm not one of those, man. I'm like, fuck it, we're gonna do what we can do to make it work. If it don't work, whatever. It don't make us. We're not gonna be off any worse than we are right now. So that's what I'm about. Liberation Minded Media.